We'll do a 3, 2, 1 clap here in a second, too. Right.
3, 2, 1.
Three, two, one, go. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hyperbolic Vibe Chamber. I am Merrick, as always, aka the Back Alley Alligator, and of course, back with me again is my brother.
Hello.
You may remember us from Undertale fame, like 10 years ago, back in the late aughts.
Yeah, I still feel bad that I was never able to finish the Genocide run.
We'll come back to that, you know, on our 10-year anniversary of the Zanzibar Collective. So we're here today with pretty interesting and ambitious project that we're doing today. Now, what you may see on your screens right now is the intro to Chrono Trigger, a classic JRPG from the Super Nintendo era, and is widely considered one of the greatest RPGs ever made. So on and so forth. We're here specifically because this game is very important to both me and my brother. We played this game growing up as kids, and it was very formative for both of us in the way in the stories we like, in the stories we tell, in the connection that him and I have as siblings, and a lot more that we're gonna go into here. And so we've been wanting to do an HVC on this for a while, and we're finally just kind of getting to it now. But at the same time, though, there's another project I've been meaning to try out, another sort of show idea for the collective here, and we're essentially going to be piloting that here today. We are definitely producing two shows in one because we're saving on production costs. So what spurred this idea on, and I'm tentatively calling it Collective Thoughts because we've had that name running around our production, our like productions to make tab in our Google Doc here, and I always like the name. So this is a pilot for Collective Thoughts. Now the idea behind Collective Thoughts is I wanted to one-on-one have conversations with members of the collective, you know, me and like my brother here, and talk about stuff that makes us, you know, the Zanzibar Collective, i.e. our interest in gaming, our creativity, our history together, all that kind of stuff. Like, so the real nuts and bolts of our relationships and our both personal and with our own creativity and our own gaming. And I was inspired, I want to say several months ago, honestly 2 or 3 months ago, you had sent me a Reddit post. Now, I'm not really on Reddit at all.
I migrated to Reddit after the great Tumblr disaster of 2018.
And he sent me this post, and it was on r/askreddit, which I can only assume is a subreddit designed to ask people questions on Reddit or whatever. And the question that was asked was, what was the video game that got you into gaming as a kid? And I'm looking at this post, and there's like a single, you know, spotlighted post that I started reading through, and I'll read it right now, and we'll send it over to Monty, and he'll post it probably so that it could be seen. And it went like this. It said, technically, that would be Super Mario Bros., but I wanted to dig a little deeper. I remember dying several times in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I remember crashing the RC Pro-Am and crashing on RC Pro-Am and Excitebike. I remember playing Tetris till the red light on my Game Boy faded and died. I remember when the 90s came and the Super Nintendo fought for supremacy. I spent hours on the tracks in Mario Kart and fell in love with a bounty hunter, or what I considered love at least, in Super Metroid. The game I remember the most fondly, the one title that will forever hold the top spot on my list, Chrono Trigger. There have been countless videos and essays about the virtues of this game, and my sentiments mirror it quite well. The memories that stick out with me the most are the countless hours sitting next to my younger brother, going over ideas and strategies, learning techs and grinding for levels, searching for side quests, and eventually slaying the giant beast Lavos.
Spoiler alert.
By this time, Sure, spoiler alert for this, decades-old game. By this time, I already knew I was a gamer. This game, this moment, is when I knew I'd have my brother along for the ride. That was more than 2 decades ago, and even today, the two things are still true. Chrono Trigger is still my favorite game of all time, and my brother loves to play games just as much as I do.
Which is why the Zanzibar Collective exists, just so you know.
Amongst many, I would say. Maybe, I would say least amongst the list of reasons, but amongst many.
Hey, I take credit where I can, okay?
Fair enough. Mostly because I don't want to discredit Monty's work that he's put into this channel. That's mostly what that is. So I had read through this post and I had gotten a little verklempt because I'm like, oh my god, that mirrors everything I've ever felt. I looked up at the top of the post and realized it was my brother that posted it. I'm like, oh, he is that's literally just me. Okay. And then I got a little bit more verklempt. So here we are. We're starting this HVC for Chrono Trigger, and I hope that we'll be able to continue with it, and see it through to the end because I adore this game, and I really would love to, you know, as much fun as I had with Undertale with you, I'd love to have that same sort of experience with you.
Let me cut you off for a minute because one of my favorite parts of this video is coming up.
Oh no. Oh, what did you do? Oh no. You do this every time! So, spoiler alert, this girl, who is initially named Marl, is actually Princess Nadia in disguise. So he went ahead and just blew the whole disguise off. She's just Nadia now. And he does this every time because it gives him so much glee.
It really does. It really does.
So real quick, if it's not obvious, you're the one that's recording the gameplay right now, like I did Undertale before.
Yes. The black bar that you see at the bottom of the screen is unfortunately just a side effect of the Super Nintendo. In some scenes you see it, in some scenes you don't. I think it's in the overworld that you don't, but anywhere inside or in battles you will see that black bar. Nothing got cut off, it's not misaligned or anything like that. That was just the limitations of the programming at the time. Which, considering this is like a 30-year-old game almost, is freaking amazing.
Right, for sure. So, what I wanted to do, and what, you know, Collective Thoughts is going to be, is I wanted to delve deeper into that question. What was the video game that got you into gaming as a kid? And obviously your post answered it quite well, but I'd like to just kind of dig deeper into it. And, like, you know, talk about the game itself with actual, you know, points of reference here, and kind of get our history with it, and, you know, not only enjoying the game, but actually delving deep into a legitimate, you know, question. Was there like a significant difference with this game, like before and after? Like before, you're like, yeah, I'm really into the Nintendo. Like, did this game have any bigger, or like, did it have any impact on you as a gamer, as a kid who was into gaming? Like, did this change the way you saw gaming, or was it just another thing that added to what would become like a foundation of your interest?
Chrono Trigger was definitely one of the turning points when it came to my relationship with video games. Because back then, in the early 90s, in the late 90s even, there was no console war. Not like we know it today. You know, you had Nintendo, you had Sega, you had a couple of smaller companies. Atari was still trying to be relevant. You had things like the TurboGrafx 16 that was trying to be relevant. And for the most part, it was just market competition. It wasn't really a war per se. I hesitate to even call it a war today, but that's what most people have come to associate it with.
Right. I think there's just I think it stems from like this level of like tribalism that the gaming industry tried to create.
That's the exact word I was going to use.
Yeah, I believe, honestly, the first instance I can think of is, you know, Sega does when Nintendo don't. Where it was like legitimately targeting another faction, another console, which bred like an us versus them mentality, which completely feeds into this tribalism. You're one and not the other.
I used to be able to beat this, and for some reason I couldn't.
Okay, so
sorry.
No, that's fine. This is like legitimately like a press a button really fast challenge. And so like I remember never being able to do it.
Now, to point out, I'm using an emulator called BizHawk, and if you look in the top left, you can see an input display. You can see how quickly I'm pressing the A button, and I didn't win.
Quick side note, one of my greatest achievements as a gamer, which is funny because this is, you know, under this umbrella of a question. This was one of the first games I ever beat. Like, actually played from beginning to end. On my own, like, I sat down and did every hour of this game. And
we didn't have Google, we didn't have IGN, we didn't have GameFAQs.
Didn't have anything. And the reason why I bring that up is because I beat it on an original cartridge on an original Super Nintendo.
Yes.
Like, I beat this on my childhood console. And by mine, I mean, it was mostly my brother's.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had the little brother privilege there.
Curiously enough, and I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations has passed on this, but the cartridge wasn't mine.
No, it absolutely was not.
The cartridge belonged to my neighbor, and we were best friends. And he said, hey, come check out this game with me. And I did. And I say, hey, that looks cool. Can I take it over to my place and play? He's like, yeah, sure. And it never went back.
And like these guys were like an enigma because they were like cool like sports player guys that also had a Super Nintendo and liked playing video games. Like they were like the progenitor of the cool nerd. And I don't know, like it's just for some reason this game, like either they didn't care or it never occurred to them that we still had it, but they never asked for it and they very rarely talked about it, if at all.
And then they moved away, and then it just became mine.
So, like, here we are. So, yeah, I distinctly remember the moment I beat this game.
I love the different menus.
Oh, yeah, this is really cool.
I had to point that out.
You know, just taking up the very small amount of RAM that this game had. And they were probably, like, trying to fill it, too, funnily enough.
Oh, yeah.
We were at our dad's place on like their old we were on the family TV, so the TV that was in the living room, and we had it hooked up into there, and here I was just playing this game on the family TV, literally the entire family just watching me play it because I was already there.
There wasn't anything else to do.
There wasn't anything else to do, but here I was. And, like, obviously my dad didn't care, but, like, my brother was sitting there watching me do it and, like, keeping track and making sure if I needed the help he was there to give it. But, like, here I am playing through the final bosses of this game and just, like, finally doing it. And, like, and don't get me wrong, I literally was on New Game Plus for my brother's playthrough. So, like,
he didn't know that at the time.
I didn't know that at the time, but here I am. Like, I had seen my brother do a lot of it, and here I was trying to do it on my own, and I finally did it, and I won, and I beat the game, and, like, I would honestly say that's probably when I got into gaming, which is funny.
By the way, kudos to Chrono Trigger for pioneering New Game Plus.
Right? Oh, this game pioneered so much, though. Like, I don't think this was one of the first. I know this was one of the first. I don't think it was the first, but like the active time battle system? Like, it wasn't the first, but like it certainly is a really good representation of the system.
It was definitely not very commonly heard of in any RPG, let alone JRPGs, because this was during the era of like Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6.
Like distinctly turn-based.
Yeah, those are distinctly turn-based. Heck, Final Fantasy didn't see active time battles until like 12?
No, 8 had it.
Did it?
I think so. I think it started in 8. I think the PlayStation era converted to it. I think. I could be very wrong on that. I'm sure.
I don't know.
I'm sure Jack will pipe in here, but but yeah, like for sure, like it was a very early adopter of this active time battle system, I believe, and it does a very good job of it.
Yeah. I will admit that I tried and failed to do a couple of speedrunning tricks. Because there was a time where I tried to learn Chrono Trigger as a 12-hour speedrun, and that was before I learned that Chrono Trigger itself was a 6-hour run. So that didn't end up so well. I ended up making it a good way of the game through, but ended up losing the RNG manipulation and just did not have the levels to progress.
So that's a whole other video too, but
yeah. Anyways, back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, for those of you don't know, my brother's fairly big into the speedrunning community, so there'll probably be a video on that later. But it's funny, incidentally, I'm sure that your love of this game had led you to speedrunning in some very long and winded way.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's like you said, it's a long and convoluted path, but ultimately it ended at Poexel on Twitch. He does a lot of long-form JRPG speedruns, up to and including Chrono Trigger. I believe he has the world record in a couple of Chrono Trigger categories.
Oh, that's cool.
And I ended up meeting him at GDQ.
Oh, right.
So that was fun.
I'm curious now, you know, one of the things that I think begs a question is, like, what got you into gaming as a kid? What does gaming mean to you? And, like, what did it mean to you then, and what does it mean to you now?
The gist of it is kind of harkens back to what I was saying earlier about tribalism, in that a lot of people see this dichotomy of hardcore gamers versus casual gamers, Xbox versus PlayStation versus Switch, console versus PC versus mobile versus, you know, all of these versus.
Right.
And we could do so much more if we got rid of versus. Now, I'm not talking about fighting games and getting rid of, you know, PvP, getting rid of MOBAs, getting rid of battle royales. No, what I'm talking about is the more we work together, the more we can find the next Minecraft, the next Fortnite, the next Ninja, the next, you know, the next big thing will come faster and better if we just work together. Gaming, to me, is having fun playing games. Doesn't matter what genre. It doesn't matter if you're playing casually or if you're trying to get a world record. It doesn't matter if you're first or last. If you're having fun, you're playing games. You're a gamer.
It also, you know, doesn't matter who you are or who you're with.
Right. Yeah.
Like everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, nothing in what I just said matters whether you're male, female, intersex, transgender, you know, gay, straight, lesbian. None of that matters. If you play games and you have fun doing it, you're a gamer.
Exactly. Like, it doesn't need to be like so compartmentalized.
Yes.
And I think, I mean, that compartmentalizing, you know, I think it might have been like a product of, you know, early marketing and sort of the capitalist sort of overreach on selling video games with this sort of tribalism was meant to, you know, push individuals into, you know, investing, quote unquote, more and more into whatever they identified with, whatever tribe they identified with. And I think part of it's that, but I think there's also like, I think there's something to be said of the evolution of what that early stigma of being a gamer was. Like in the earliest days of sort of this nerdy, geeky, like quote unquote uncool concept of being someone who played video games.
Well, hold on. I want to pump the brakes on that real quick because that didn't really come out in the 90s.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because you have movies like The Wizard, where the kid was literally a hero for playing video games.
Sure.
Well, I mean, I know it sounds silly, but that movie explicitly revealed a new cheat in Super Mario Bros. 3. The warp whistle in the castle. Up until that point, no one knew about it until that movie came out. Like, this was something that, quote unquote, gamers didn't know.
Right.
And the fact that Hollywood say, hey, by the way, here's something you didn't know.
I mean, to be fair, the cynic in the back of my head is going like, yep, that's just real good marketing.
And it is.
I know. That's the worst part, is the cynicism is honestly sometimes more real than, you know, the reality we see.
By the way, an accidental sequence break that was, for some reason, just there. You're supposed to test out the teleporter, but if you just talk to Nadia, she says, hey, that looks cool, I want to try it too.
And it just does.
And then just does before you even get a chance.
That's interesting. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, you never have to get in. All you have to do is talk to her. It's like, hey, I want to try it too. It's like, oh, wait a minute. But you didn't. Oh, well, okay.
But yeah, I think I think it was definitely an effect of like tribalism and this sort of insecurity that was, you know, which, I mean, honestly, gamers are still feeling kind of this to this day. And the worst part is now it's older gamers preying on younger gamers for their insecurities too.
I will point out that this marketing / tribalism is explicitly why I never got into any PlayStation titles. So things like Final Fantasy 3D, you know, 7, 8, 9, etc. Any of like Crash Bandicoot or Spyro the Dragon or Need for Speed, I never got into any of those major PlayStation franchises because I avoided PlayStation. Right,
which was, you know, you get it ingrained, unfortunately.
Yeah, you know, I was really, really big into the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube, and you know, for some people see that as a down thing, as a downward, you know, trend. I liked it,
right?
You know,
and at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. Like, you know, calling back to before. I know that's kind of where you and I diverged, because eventually I had access to a lot of separate consoles. I ended up sort of falling into the Microsoft camp and going really hard into the Xbox sort of chain of consoles. But like at the same time, though, I remember it was a big deal when I had access to a PS2, an Xbox, and a GameCube all at the same time, and I could just do whatever I wanted.
Let's not forget our stepbrother Eric and the Dreamcast with a library of 1,000 games.
Yo, you know, maybe not so, you know, intentionally, maybe not so high on the legality there, but we did get that going. Okay. So I want to take a quick side note, because this is sort of an important moment within the storyline. You know, we talked over it a bit, but basically, the girl that we had been hanging with out all day disappears into a teleportation sphere, and no one knows where she went. So you, the silent protagonist, like, the game won't progress until you decide to take up the pendant and go after her. And so, like, yeah, that's obviously railroading, and the obvious choice is to progress the storyline. You got to do the thing, but
accepting the canon, you as the silent hero have to make the decision.
Right.
Like, the game will literally just sit there and wait for you to decide that this is what you're going to do.
Exactly.
There were not a lot of games that forced that decision on you, because the options were to either continue the plot or turn off the game.
Right. And so here I was, a kid, getting to decide I'm going to be the hero. And, like, the kind of hero that, without question, without, for me, without hesitation, without fear, deciding I'm going to go into the unknown, knowing not what lies on the other side, to go rescue someone. Because as an individual and as a person, they deserve to get rescued, because they didn't, choose to get lost into a teleportation thing. But here I am, and here they are, and I'm going to go after them and save them, because that's what needs to happen. That's just.
I would like to point out that I failed to skip on that bridge.
No, you're supposed to be able to skip that fight, huh?
Yeah.
And so, like, that left an impression on me, for sure. And that's not even the biggest impression this game left on me, because there's a whole other character in this game that really stuck with me, and has for a long time. Incidentally, he's an amphibian. But, like, that's the storytelling of this game. It was done in such a way that it has literally left very deep marks on the kind of person I am, and the kind of, quote unquote gamer.
It's the year 600, and the 21st king of Guardia reigns. If you remember, even though we didn't actually mention it, we start in 1000 AD at the Millennial Fair.
Right.
So people are telling us that we are now 400 years in the past.
Yep. So one of the best time traveling stories ever told. I'm going to throw that on the table. I'll die on that hill. But yeah, like, I definitely want to kind of go back to my original question there of, like, what does gaming mean to you now? Sort of after figuring out what gaming was to you then.
Wait, hold on. I gotta point this out. I love doing this to this guy.
Basically, are you inputting a command and it just makes him?
Well, look at the input display. If you just walk into him, he speeds up. But if you run against him, he goes into hyperdrive.
That's funny. I didn't know that. So yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and answer the question there.
I'm sorry. There's just so many things about this game that I absolutely love. I'm sorry.
I know.
Anyways, now that that's over with. Well, I kind of really answered that already, in the sense that, a gamer is just someone who games.
Sure.
The definition really is that simple. Mm-hmm. What gaming means to me is exactly that. You have fun playing games, whether it's a job, or whether it's something you do as a hobby, or whether it's something that, what did they change their name to? Matt Makes Games. I don't remember what they changed their name to.
They've now officially rebranded to Extremely OK Games, or EXOK for short.
But, the company that made Celeste, started as a Pico 8 project, with a file size of like half a gigabyte. And it turned into what is now Celeste, and it is this huge phenomenon, which, by the way, got robbed of Game of the Year, but we won't go there.
No.
But again, it goes back to the fact that it was an independent game, was nominated for Game of the Year, and lost to Red Dead Redemption.
Right, which is, I mean, an uphill battle, but I can see why.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're going to lose, at least that's what you want to lose to. But
yeah, I agree. You didn't lose after Call of Duty Black Ops 2 or whatever. Don't get me wrong, a cool game, but like I wouldn't call it Game of the Year.
But it all just kind of keeps going back to that same premise. If you play games, if you enjoy it, you're a gamer. Whether you're on Twitch or Mixer, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. I mean, look at the big names like, you know, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie. They don't do as many gaming videos, but no one stops and say, hey, you're not a gamer anymore.
Right.
You just don't do that.
I agree.
And the same applies to literally everyone else. You know, whether it's some 80-year-old grandmother playing, you know, Plants vs. Zombies, or our mother destroying us in Peggle.
Which she does on the regular. Like, you know, like when you have a kid and you're like teaching them like basketball or something, and eventually you're like letting them win whenever you like quote unquote play one-on-one, which is literally just you handing them a ball trying to get them to make a basket. And then eventually, like as they get older and they get better, you start actually having to play them, and you stop letting them win and they start beating you and you can't actually beat them. That's the stage I'm at with Peggle and my mother. It's just like I am actively trying to beat her with all the amount of gaming experience I have under my belt, and I just can't beat her. She just has it. She just has it. She also does that to me in checkers too. I'm very bad at checkers.
I'd like to point out that she's been expecting us. The queen of this kingdom has been expecting us, and just walk away.
Yeah,
nothing stops me from leaving at all.
Yep. So yeah, like this game, and like I hesitate to say like it was I would say one of my earliest games that I felt were transformative for me.
By the way, soundtrack.
Oh god, it is top 5, top 3 all time, I would say. Somewhere in that ballpark. Also
plot twist.
Big important plot twist that leads into one of the best explanations for time travel that I really enjoy.
Now, it does have its flaws, but for what it needs to do, it does it well.
Yes. It made sense, and to a kid like me who was playing it, I got it and was able to like roll with it.
Like, hey guys, Queen's gone. Don't mind me. I'm just leaving.
I'm leaving. I mean, because this is one of the earliest games I felt was transformative for me.
Hold on. Big payoff. Did
you know that Nadia was Nadia? And... yes, Nadia was Princess Nadia. So here's this explanation that I love, is that basically by going back in time, the series of events that occurred at the time you go back to shifted because of her presence there, and because of that shift, it changes sort of basically, the princess was mistook for her ancestor, and because she showed up, the ancestor was never rescued from being kidnapped, and eventually was killed. And when she dies, the rest of the line throughout the future dies. So that's why the princess disappears.
I would like to point out, and I didn't realize this for the longest time, this is an extremely subtle and clever way of limiting your party size to 3. Because if she doesn't disappear, she joins your party. And she can't join your party if Frog is in your party.
Yes. There's a level of expertise in this way this game is designed the way the narrative, the way the story is designed, the way the mechanics are designed, everything is woven together expertly in a way that is often imitated but never quite recreated. Like I said, I say this with I say this without any doubt. This is one of the greatest RPGs ever made. You ask anyone who's writing or making RPGs, they'll say, if they haven't played this, they'll say they don't want to, or if they have played it, they'll say it's a huge influence. I would say this is one of the earliest games that was transformative to me. I've been trying to get back to this point. Earliest games that was transformative for me in a way that it influenced the way I saw, like, I understood what it meant to be a hero. And it's funny because some of my favorite media today all sort of follow a very similar track, where the protagonist, the person who will become the hero, which there's a whole lot involved with the concept of a hero that over time has to mature and there's a lot more nuance to the concept. It's not just, you know, the guy, you know, saves the girl or whatever, which is problematic in and of itself. But the idea is, like, there is something that needs to be done. There is an obvious issue. There is an obvious, you know, task to be done for good, quote unquote, which obviously changes with your morality and all that stuff. But once again, this game being, you know, formative for me. Also, I kind of got my sense of right and wrong and good and evil from this game at an earlier age than some. Whereas, you know, people would learn good and evil and bad and good and light and dark and all that kind of jazz. They're sort of formative, fantastical versions of what morality is. You know, a lot of people get it from movies or comic books or books and things like that. And I specifically think I got it from Chrono Trigger and gaming in general. Which has its drawbacks, and as I've, you know, gotten older and certainly tried to mature, I've had to address all that kind of stuff. But, like, there's my favorite character. There is the character who I learned what heroism was, what being a hero is.
I would also like to point out that Luca is racist.
Yes, absolutely. Like, there's a lot of problems up in this game. Yeah.
Luca is racist.
Against frog people.
By the way.
Of course you did. Because he's not a frog person, he's a human that got turned into a frog, and his human name was Glenn. Now that we've gotten that spoiler out of the way. Like,
I'm sorry, I can't help it. I have a problem.
There's a concept of a sense of part of heroism is acting when no one else does for the greater good, for the good cause. And doing so, I wouldn't say with reckless abandon, but with spirit, with knowing that there's a sense of when you know you've made the right decision, you don't have to second guess it. You don't have to question yourself. You don't have to see and weigh out all the other options. It's when you're presented with the choice of doing what's right, you do that thing and you don't question. And then obviously you have to ask what's right and wrong, and that's the whole other, you know, maturity part that comes with it. But my earliest recollection of heroism from this game is there's only the good choice. There's only the choice to make of, I'm going to go rescue the person. I'm going to go, you know, join the fight. I'm going to go play my part in this greater role of doing the greater good. And I have found that this early concept of gaming, this early concept that I've gained from gaming, from playing video games, has definitely dictated my interests and my narrative interests and likes throughout the entirety of my life. Other games that I've really enjoyed, other movies I've really enjoyed, and books and all other forms of media, I find a through line of that kind of concept. Like, for instance, one of my favorite moments from Firefly, of all shows. It's in the train heist episode. And, the main character, the captain of the ship Serenity, the Firefly class ship Serenity, because I'm a nerd, him and his crew have just stolen a bunch of goods off of a train heading towards a, old outpost town that's really, really barren and is looking for supplies, and they just stole all the supplies. Mostly medical supplies and things like that, medicines and things. And after they realize what they've done throughout the course of this episode, they go through a lot of trial and tribulation to return the stolen goods, to return the stolen supplies. And in the midst of dropping these supplies off outside of town, they actually get caught by the sheriff, in which they had been having sort of a conversation and rapport with throughout the episode. And the sheriff, starts talking to them. He's like, it essentially boils down to the idea of that when a person is presented with a choice, with the choice to do something good, they have to make this choice between what's good and what's easy, or what's the right thing to do versus whatever else. And the main character, the protagonist, Mal, just straight-faced, without hesitation, just says,
I don't believe he does.
The intent being that when faced with the decision of what's doing right and what's doing wrong, there is no choice. The choice is to do what's right. And that line has always stuck with me. And that line has always stuck with me about the kind of character Mal is in Firefly. It's, regardless of the criminal he is and the sly bastard that he is, there's a core to him that is, when presented with the choice of doing what's right, there isn't one. The option is just to do the right thing. And I felt like the earliest transformative things I've gotten from gaming is this game, and it's that concept of that being a hero means that you make the right choice. You do the right thing. And, as a human in the real world, obviously it doesn't play out that way a lot of the time, especially in my own life. I know I've made some wrong decisions. I've done some of the wrong things, but overall, the things that have been most rewarding to me have been the decisions where, when faced with doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing, I knew what to do, and I knew what was the right thing to do, and made that decision without question, without hesitation. And so, I wouldn't say this... It's funny, because this game isn't what got me into gaming necessarily, although it was a major sort of cornerstone for that. I would say the game that got me into gaming is actually Final Fantasy X, for a whole different set of reasons. But definitely, this game, and playing this game, and experiencing the storyline, taught me exactly what gaming can mean to me, and what being into gaming could mean for me, which is formative and, telling me and showing me what some larger concepts of my life could eventually be. Could be, there's a sense of truth, and there's a sense of realities that you can learn from even a simple game like this. And I say simple, but from... This game taught me that being into gaming wasn't just me playing video games, it was me experiencing stories that could legitimately affect the person I would become. And that felt very long-winded, but I feel like that's sort of the... It's hard to say what got you into gaming and then not want to fall into what gaming means to you, and fall into how formative, and I hesitate to say an identity of it, because that has some really strong negative connotations, of just identity, associating your identity with gaming, specifically too much, or things like that. And that's a whole other conversation for a whole other show. If you ever want to listen to content of people who know more about the overarching gaming industry and identity and all that kind of stuff, the late Total Biscuit did a lot of podcasts and conversations about dealing with specifically tribalism in the video game industry, and dealing with, you know, attaching too much of your personal identity to gaming and to video games in a way that was, you know, toxic and negative. And so, like, a lot of my opinions on that stem from his, you know, podcasts and conversations. But like I said, a whole other video could be dedicated to that. But yeah, I think this first, like, hour of this game does a great job of illustrating what the story of this game is about. And it's, you know, being a hero and doing what's right and facing these challenges because that's the choice of either I don't do these things and, you know, everything goes wrong, or I do this thing and do my very best to save the situation, to rescue the princess in this regard. And I felt like I just took over the last, like, 10 minutes worth of talking, but, like...
No, that's fine. You had something very poignant to say, and I didn't want to interrupt.
I appreciate that. So, like, thoughts, like, where do you feel on that?
From a technical standpoint, Chrono Trigger set the bar in a lot of different regards. One of the things that Chrono Trigger pioneered, in addition to ATBs, was enemies, battles taking place on the screen that you are and not transitioning to another screen to initiate combat.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point, actually. Final Fantasy did that a lot.
Because even Final Fantasy VI did it, and that was the last one that, you know, of this era. By the way, sequence break. You're supposed to fight those guys.
I knew about that one.
This next, we'll say 10 minutes, is the only major skip I was able to pull off.
Oh, well, there you go.
I had to take a few minutes to relearn how to do it, because the last time I did it was several years ago.
Oh, you're trying to do the Hekron skip, aren't you?
But Yarka, but yes.
Hekron's the other guy. You're doing the Yarka skip. That's right. I get the names mixed up. It's been a while.
Basically, the way this works is if you enter into a transition and the screen starts to fade to black, you can pause and go into the menu. When you unpause, you have a few frames where you can still control Chrono. If you repause, that few frames of movement resets so you can move again. And the idea is if you go through the door, start the transition, and menu buffer to the save point, save the game, and transition, or unpause and transition through the door while you're on that save point, the game will continue to believe that you are on the save point, and you can therefore save without being on said save point. And needless to say, this breaks a lot of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So, while I figure out how to do all of that, I want to point out a couple of things about Chrono Trigger that have really stuck with me. One of the things I mentioned earlier, the soundtrack. Oh my god, the soundtrack. Very few games have had a soundtrack that is as stunning to me personally as Chrono Trigger. The two that stand out are Celeste, like I mentioned earlier, and Super Metroid, and the Metroid series in general. If I had to say anything, I would say those three soundtracks are my, like, top. This is where I'm looking it up online. It's like, okay, I'm doing something wrong here. Do I pause it? Do I not pause it? Screw it, I'm just gonna look it up. Anyways, the other thing is, like I mentioned way earlier, New Game Plus. In Chrono Trigger, it is nearly impossible to do everything in one playthrough.
I.e., there are multiple endings to this game.
Well, that, but the actual, like, speedrun category 100% doesn't take it into account, but in certain instances, there are decisions that have to be made where you gain one item or three. And there's no way to do both, unless you do New Game Plus. And you play through the entire game, you get through the end quest, redo that quest, but choose the other option. But I can't go into too much more detail because it is a little bit of a spoiler, and I do want to eventually get to that point in the video series. But yeah, Chrono Trigger is just this massive, massive soap opera. And there are several arcs, there are several performances, there are several... I messed up. Reset.
All right, welcome to the HVC.
I messed up. Reset.
So this is the speed running portion of the HVC.
This is the big bonus. You can see I actually got it working this time. I'm moving a few frames, pausing, unpausing, moving a few frames. I mean, you can see the input display is going a little nuts up at the top. A lot of mashing, a lot of holding left. Like I said, the goal is to get to the save point, which I'm almost there. But once I get there, I'll play around a little bit, and let's just watch for a few more moments.
You make your save. You have to just pause buffering is what you called it.
See, now I'm in the save menu, but not on the save point.
Right.
So I go ahead and save in the middle of an active cutscene.
Right, which you shouldn't be able to move.
Yes. Now, in this case, I'm saving periodically because I don't remember where the trigger is. But a trigger will happen, and I'll lose control of the characters, and then it goes from there. By the way, if you have any form of anxiety, watching that save counter tick up is so nerve-wracking.
I was just thinking that, like, oh, there we go. You just ruined the whole thing.
It killed me to do this. So many saves. See there, I've lost control of the characters. I reset. I did a soft reset. LR, start and select. I reload the save file. I can still save. And now, in a scene where I have no control over the characters, I can now move the characters freely.
Right.
And, in doing so, I can open the chest that has the Chancellor in it, which triggers the after-battle scene.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing to be careful of is if Luca is off-screen, you will soft
you need her to be on-screen?
You saw very briefly I moved up to watch Yarka change and then came straight back down.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have Yarka on screen when he starts to change, again, you will soft lock.
Huh.
Because he's off screen when the battle starts, it counts him as not being in the battle, so it ends the fight.
Huh. Well, there you go, everybody.
And because you rescued the Chancellor, it automatically continues into the same cutscene that you already started. So now you go talk to the Queen.
And you walk out.
And you go home.
So what we just witnessed here was, here's a little, is our tip. That was a speedrunning technique, everybody. So there's a little bit for you there, here at the end. A
little bonus for sticking with us.
Right? Not quite sure how this video is going to get cut. This has been a fairly, actual conversation heavy, not necessarily about the game, but about our lives in gaming in general, which is, like I said, this is meant to be a pilot of sorts for collective thoughts, where I want to ask these sort of larger questions and try to get some of these larger answers. Although, like I said, I'm the one that answered with the big one. It's that big, 15-minute long bit. But I hope that I can get better and coax those answers out of other people. But I think between you and I, we kind of share a lot of the same thoughts, if anything.
Well, and think the other point of that is that as important as my answers are, your answers are important too.
That's true. I just didn't want to think I was like editorializing over everything. It's like, no, this is my answer, and that's the right one. Like, if I wanted to do that, I should just go like write a paper or something. But Lord knows I can't write or read. But I can sure play video games, and then I wink into the camera.
But no, I want to leave a little bit of a parting thought here. As far as HVC is concerned, I definitely want to continue this. As far as Collective Thoughts is concerned, this is likely where I will end as far as this particular question. I want to say, essentially, that, and again, this echoes what I was saying earlier, who you are is not a part of the definition of what makes you a gamer. What makes you a gamer is the definition of who you are. And this is a very important distinction. Because, like I was saying earlier, you can be gay, straight, you can be transgender, you can be intersex, you can be agender, asexual. It does not matter. None of that prevents you from being a gamer. Who you are as a gamer can define you as a person, but who you are as a person cannot define you as a gamer. And so if you are hesitant about getting into games, if you are hesitant about being perceived in a certain way, there are people who are going to judge you regardless, and that sucks. And trust me, I get it. Don't let the naysayers stop you from enjoying what you like. If you want to play MOBAs, if you want to play casual phone games, if you want to play idle games, if you want to play, you know, World of Warcraft, Cookie Clicker, whatever it is you want to play, if you enjoy it, play it. Because it's about you and your relationship with games that matters.
Agreed. I cannot agree more. That is a very good thought and a very good ending. A very good ending thought to this conversation. And I hope the plan here and the hope is to reach out to the other members of the collective, some of the other people that you've seen in a few of our other shows, and ask them the same question and see where, not only to get to know each other and have them, you know, be more than just voices behind the camera, but like to try to really, you know, delve deeper into who we are as people and as gamers, because a lot of who we are and a lot of the kind of gamers we are, a lot of that subconsciously translates to what the collective is, and I just want to tap into that more because, let's be honest, a lot of what the channel is for me is getting to see my favorite people do my favorite things, which is hang out and play games and have a good time. So like I'm basically using this show and HVC and the channel as a whole to just be with my friends and be with the people I adore. And I'm hoping through this kind of stuff you can learn to adore them too, and you know we can all grow as a community and as people together by learning more about each other and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
And as we pass the 1 hour mark, I'd like to take a moment to plug my Twitch channel.
Yes, go ahead.
Twitch.tv/CKODEN, C-Coden. There'll probably be a link in the description, I hope. I try to stream regularly, but the goal is eventually to do further HVCs live on Twitch in addition to recording them and posting them to YouTube. In addition to several other games that I play, among them Link to the Past, Magic the Gathering, and hopefully, if I can get it working correctly, Outer Worlds when it comes out at the end of the week.
Oh no, Chris is eagerly excited to play that game too, so maybe y'all can have something to talk about someday. Alright, So thank you, everybody, for watching. Please check out my brother over at his Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Decoded. And hopefully we should be able to get more of this game up and running with more HVC, which will probably be more like what we've done before, less heavy on, this kind of like piloting this sort of conversation, and more just us talking about the game, reminiscing, and all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that you're used to. So thank you for sticking with us for this long, and let us know if you liked the conversation, if you had anything to add to the conversation. Feel free to correct us if we're wrong, because Lord knows we're going to be.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there's several things we got wrong.
But thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
And stop recording.